Hey guys, Dr. Uptown here again. We're going to delve down into this American Tactical Titan and just see what it's got to offer for us to look at. Go ahead and start off with the simple field strip procedure. Go ahead and pull our slide back to our breakdown notch. And once we're in that position, go ahead and begin working our slide off. I'll set the frame aside for a minute. Once we get the slide off, it's going to be a very similar procedure to most of our other short 1911 pistols. Let's work the spring and guide rod out. Small little barrel bushing for that guide rod to go into. And then with this little short 3.1 inch barrel, the rest of the slide looks pretty good. Series 70 pistol. Like I say, the frame's nice and clean looking too. One thing I do notice with these American Tacticals are all the parts have I'm going to assume it's initials and then a builder mark on them. So I found that kind of interesting. You just don't see that very much anymore. We'll go ahead and go to our grips next. Like I say, this is a officer-sized frame. So if you choose to change the grips out, the standard officer grips will work. This is a Parkerized pistol, even though it may on camera appear to be blued. It is in fact Parkerized. First thing we'll do is go ahead and work our mainspring housing bushing out. Start with our mainspring housing pin. We should be able to slide our mainspring housing out after that. This one does seem to be in there rather tightly. Bit unusual. I haven't ever had one in that tight before. Go ahead and work our thumb safety out. My thought was that perhaps, let's get this a little wrap here. My thought was that perhaps if we got the grip safety started, perhaps we might be able to work it out a little bit. And that would allow us to get down to the mainspring housing. What? Does seem to definitely be on there. Let's see if we can get it started. It does not seem to want to do it. It's awfully tight. What I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and just briefly pause the video here while I mess with this. You don't need to watch me doing this all day long. Okay, we did get that worked off a little bit. I'm curious as to why that was stuck on there so well. But we did get it to come off, finally. Just playing around with it some. Just looking our parts over here as we go. Check everything for cleanliness. Do want to yep. Slides in and out easily enough. It must have just possibly been stuck there just slightly. Anyway, just continue with their breakdown. Remove our hammer pin, our hammer, then remove our sear and disconnector pin. Should allow our sear and disconnector to fall free. Alright, last but not least, smaller bit here on my screwdriver. Last but not least, we'll remove the magazine catch and the trigger out. Leaves us with our basic frame. No surprises inside there. We'll get a few of these parts wiped up and then we'll go ahead and reassemble. Okay, well, we're back with you. We got most all of our parts cleaned up, dried off. All the excessive oil off of them. Well, the first thing I noticed is this trigger does seem a bit tight, so we're going to work it just a little bit. See if we can get it to drop freely in, which I believe we've taken care of that. Go ahead and reinstall our mag release. That's dropping free. Next, we're going to go ahead and reinstall our sear and disconnector. As I always do with you guys, show you the configuration that needs to be in to go in. It installs right in like so. And then, once again, as always, we're going to see just how lucky we can getting all the parts to line up. Got the sear in there just a little bit high. There we go. Okay, so sear and disconnector back in place. Next we'll go ahead and go back in with our hammer. Get the dog hair off of it. Okay. Place our sear spring in. Start in with our mainspring housing. I think it's just the mainspring housing and the sear spring are just so tight was the reason that we had trouble getting that mainspring housing off of there initially. So once we've got that back into place, we'll go ahead and go back in with our grip safety. Of course, as you remember, we need to go back to the full cock position. And as always, we need to put our plunger in. That seems to be something that I always forget. Plunger back into place, then we'll go back in with our grip safety. Where, oh where, oh where, there. I really kind of have discovered lately that probably one of the best things to do to push that pin back into place and allow that safety to get in without marring things up is a little bitty tiny Allen wrench. Okay, so once we've got that into play, we are ready to advance our mainspring housing up. And it does fit tight. I don't understand why. It's unusually tight. Once our mainspring housing pin is in place, we just tap it back in. Just going to do a preliminary safety check here. It seems fine. Go ahead and do it properly once we get it all back together, but I just wanted to check it while we had it to that point instead of getting it all back together and then discovering that we've got something out of adjustment. So our barrel goes back into our slide, followed by our bushing, and then our recoil spring mechanism. And this is set with a little half moon that goes over the top of the barrel. So that is just worked forward into place and down onto the barrel. Then we are ready to work our barrel replacement. As is always the case, one of the hardest things to do is get the barrel link lined up with our holes in her frame. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put the grips back on first, but one of the things I do want to check is to see what the trigger pull is now that we cleaned everything up, because when I initially tested it, it was at 8 pounds, which is substantially heavy trigger pull for a 1911. I was thinking just by cleaning up some of the oil, taking everything apart, putting it back together, may lighten that pull up just a bit. I did notice that trigger bow was rather tight, and you saw us obviously make that adjustment, and that certainly could have been the culprit as to why that trigger pull was so heavy. So we're just going to test it here real quick. So we got our trigger pull gauge out. Make sure the grip safety is depressed. Guess it's not going to do any good without caulking it first. Let's cut it down to 7 pounds. Six and 3/4. Six and a half. I'll be happy with 6.5 right now, because this is a right at 6.5. This gun does belong to a new shooter to a 1911, and he's also a revolver guy. So I'm happy with 6.5 for right now, since this gun has not been fired before. I think with some rounds through it, it'll loosen it up some. Anyway, that's the complete breakdown on the American Tactical Titan. I hope you guys find this interesting. We'll talk to you later, and you have a good day.